use their years between 20 and 30 to level up, to find out who they are. So don't get into a serious relationship.
Yeah, no.
Don't do it. You used to come over to my house, sneak out.
Yeah.
You were working, and you come over to my house and we'd play Gears of War.
Yeah.
And then you would tell me, man, I can feel the eye of Sauron searching for me. Dude, this is pre-me getting married, so I had no idea what you were talking about. I was like, bro, what are you talking about? Your your wife is the eye of Sauron is the metaphor for your wife?
I mean, no.
You can feel it searching, dude, looking from the Tower of Mordor.
It as I could tell, my presence had been detected as... You know, it was like I was playing hooky from, like, my job. And the manager showed up, right?
Bro, I remember you being genuinely scared.
I was terrified. Yeah, I like start sweating. Like, I felt like I left like oven on or like my keys somewhere. I'm like, hey, we gotta wrap this up, man. We gotta go.
And yet we had to fight through the pain and keep playing.
We did. Yeah.
Get up, fight through the pain, let's go.
You were the one I used to run and talk to, and me and my girl were having problems.
Bro, and I tried relentlessly to talk you into making it work. I learned, dude, what the Eye of Sauron feels like.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I did. I
did.
learned. I went to Mordor, too.
Yeah, the only real teacher for a man is pain.
I say that all the time. I say suffering is the universal teacher.
But the problem is most people don't learn.
Yeah.
They don't learn the right lesson. They learn the wrong lesson from their pain.
It's like the suffering is wasted, this beautiful teacher.
Yeah, it's wasted.
Yeah.
And it's constantly wasted over and over again because you refused to look in that place that you don't want to look.
You live in a place of denial and victimhood. I think there's a lot of men right now that are in that spot.
Or just you giving horrible advice by people that you think ought to know.
But we only give good advice on this podcast because we are the expert non-expert. We're experts
at suffering.
At suffering.
We are experts at suffering.
We know how to suffer.
We know. Oh, we know.
All right. So women are very much wired to protect their children.
The weak.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of children in the parenting world. But yes, this extends beyond that. So women are very much wired to protect. Men, when they're healthy, are designed as a father to prepare their children for the future. And so I think this is one of the problems is that when you have too much of the feminine parenting going on, children, boys, they never actually grow into manhood because they're constantly being kind of protected and sheltered from the world by their mother. And so they grow up with a mom that is raising them, single mom or otherwise. Maybe they got a deadbeat dad who's not around, guy who's left,
sure.
or he's working a lot and he's not really involved not present in raising the children. So you have these women that are raising boys. They roll into a school system where I think the school system is designed for females.
Predominantly women.
Yeah.
Right.
Sit at a desk, listen to somebody talk for all day. Usually a woman.
Not something little boys are naturally designed to be able to tolerate.
Right. And when they don't tolerate it, the answer is to just medicate them into submission. So you have these boys that are put into a school system. It's very anti-masculinity. They come out of this school system having been raised almost entirely by women. And so
or women or female-oriented men.
Bingo. Yeah. Right. Largely. And without things like sports or other masculine influences in their lives, they actually never really make that transition into being a man. They just grow up and stay boys, right? They're just yes boys to women. And so you have a lot of women that are, I hear about this all the time on my social media, where are all the good men at? And I think what they're saying is that there's so many weak men out there, men that aren't stepping up, taking care of their responsibilities, aren't protecting their women, their children, aren't leading, right? Where have all the good men gone? And I think it's because we have this society that's very anti-masculinity right now. Right. It's just baked into the system. It's baked into the upbringing. And so these boys just grow up completely domesticated.
Right. And ego-sensitive. I found it is a epidemic in our society of men who have incredibly sensitive egos and are incredibly sensitive in general. And things like team sports, especially when they have good coaches, some of these other rites of passage where you have to confront situations where you are failing and you got to show up for your team, right? A lot if you don't go through that,
Yep.
Then you never actually have to confront kind of embodying that stoicism that women really need from men, right? Where you're not the center of the universe, and your ego isn't getting in the way of you making and doing the things that need to be done that is productive, in whatever capacity that is. And I think part of the problem too is, a lot of men don't have close male friends when they get into relationships. There's this weird expectation that you as soon as you're off the clock at work, you're on the clock with your woman, right? And because she's home, she's lonely, she's sick, she's tired. She's tired of having to,
Just chase kids all over the house.
or just be alone.
Or be alone, yeah.
Like in her own chaotic emotional thoughts. And she looks to you kind of as this like safe haven for her to, park herself and get some relief that way. And so there's a lot of pressure on men in relationships to once you clock out of work, you're clocking back into work with your woman. And if you set that as a precedence in your relationship, it's hard to break it. It's hard to break it. Like you have to, if you're a man and you realize that you've given away too much of your independence,
Your huevos are in the purse.
yeah, your man cart has been taken.
Yep.
The throne has been usurped, and you are now a stool that she can put her feet on. And
A glorified lapdog.
right, you've spent so much time, and I'm talking from experience, preventing waves that you end up creating a tsunami.
Yeah.
Right.
It seems like that is applicable for both of our first relationships, something maybe we both learned from.
Yeah.
Went in conditioned by society, by church, by family, by all these influences that your job when you get into a relationship is to be this yes man for the woman and that she's generally always right, and your job is to make her happy. And I think there's a real, because of society, but I think it's also a natural instinct based on this the need for security, that women see a dangerous man as a threat. And so their attempt to domesticate him is in a sense like this idea that if I can kind of neuter the guy, then I don't have to worry about him hanging out with the boys. I don't have to worry about him getting in trouble with other women. I've got this
little house elf.
Yeah, this to-do list guy that's going to come back and I won't be lonely anymore, and he'll do the things that I need him to do.
Right.
But the problem with that is as soon as a man gives up his man card,
She despises you.
she despises him.
She despises you.
So the natural instincts in this case are really destructive to
Yeah.
a healthy relationship. Because I believe on some level, a woman to be attracted to a man, she has to see him to a degree as being uncontrollable. Untamable, a degree of danger about it. Not danger to her, like she's going to get her teeth knocked out. Not ever advocating for disrespecting a woman ever. I don't believe in that.
No.
Ever, under any circumstances. I think as a man, you have to have enough self-control that even if she's disrespecting you, you have boundaries, but you don't return that, right? So I'm not advocating that, but some level that this man is dangerous, because I think ultimately, even though she may be striving for security, she's only going to feel security with a man who is dangerous, a man who can kick ass, a man who can go into the world and impose his will. And when she sees a man like that, biologically, there's a sexual attraction that just stays present in the relationship. Otherwise, what happens, and this is where a lot of guys are at, I think this is where you were at, to an extent, this is where I was at. This wasn't so much the theme in our marriage, but a woman will lose respect for her man because he allowed himself to be neutered, because he was doing it because he thought it was the right thing to do. The more I give, if I just make her happy, if I just acquiesce to her requests or demands, the happier she's going to be and the more she'll like me.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. So what ultimately happens is she will end up using sex as a manipulative tool to control the man. So
Yeah.
if you're on good behavior, if the stars line up just right, if it's your birthday, and if I happen to be in the mood, I don't have a headache or whatever,
Right.
then I can give you what you need sexually, but there's no desire from her to
Natural
do that.
desire.
No natural desire. It's been killed.
Organic desire has been killed. Because if she thinks you can't stand up to her, she doesn't think you can stand up for her, and that you don't deserve respect. And a man who doesn't deserve respect from his woman doesn't deserve sex.
I agree with that. And I think when we talk about giving up the man card, what does that mean? On a fundamental level, that means giving up your own self-respect.
Maintaining your own self-dignity.
You're giving that up when you give your man card up, right?
And why do you do that primarily?
To get sex.
Out of fear, right?
Yeah.
Fear.
That you're going to lose her.
You're going to lose her,
yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
You're going to lose that maternal energy, right? Because once you've started putting yourself into this dynamic with a woman, right, where she kind of moves out of your mate, your girl, right, and moves into being your mother, right? Then the dynamic now is your wife has become your mother. You go into this infantile state where you need her comfort and her care, right, and her attention. And if you don't get it, you literally feel like you're going to die. It starts to tap into some of those infantile instincts you had when you were a small child. You know, your mom would go to the bathroom, right? Have you ever seen children? Children reach their little fingers under the door as their mom's going to the bathroom. And most men have felt this when there has been some sort of threat to the relationship you have with your woman, right? That existential angst, right? Like, oh no, like the relationship might go away and I'm going to lose mommy. And if I lose mommy, I'm going to die, right? And that's something that men need to be aware of, because you're going to feel that when you have to enforce boundaries, healthy boundaries. And you're going to feel like, well, what if she leaves me? Like, what if? And it's just like, well, maybe you need to work on being a man that other women want to be with, who has options. Because men who think they have no options, or that their wife is their best and only option, they live in this scarcity mindset.
So I've heard you say this multiple times, and I've mulled it over in my head a lot. And you've said for a man to be sexually desired by his wife, on some level, she has to feel like he's sexually desired by other women.
Yeah, competition anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah. They should perceive other women. Women have this amazing ability to tap into the metaverbal body language and the subtleties of especially other women, where their eyes move, how their body is. And they can tell if other women are interested way more than most men can ever tell. And, it's like I can walk through, a whole situation, talk to just, mostly my dude friends, and then leave. And then Kristen will be like, yeah, so that girl's into you. She was
just pick up those cues.
And I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like I had no idea.
They're all into you, Rico.
I know they're so obsessed.
They're only human, bro.
Yeah, and so if your woman doesn't have the opportunity to see that or perceive that on some level, that competition anxiety a little bit, they're going to think they're with somebody that nobody else wants, and so they're going to basically discount, how valuable you really are. And so, there's two parts of that, of my point here. And that is, one is that you need to work on being the type of man that other women are going to be interested in. You shouldn't look for opportunities necessarily to, showcase yourself and court other women, but you have to be the kind of guy that other women would be interested in if you want to maintain that attraction from your woman. And also, you need to develop the ability to walk away when your boundaries are not being respected, right?
I say this to men all the time. I say this to myself all the time just to remind myself that the most important relationship a man will ever have is with himself. Like, you have to recognize that you have to be a man first before you can be good at anything else. Before you can be a good husband, before you can be a good father, before you can be a good worker, whatever that is, a good friend, you have to be a man first. And so many of these boys, as we just were talking about, they never reach that status of self-respect, that level of like, I am a man, I've arrived.
Yeah.
And so they don't know who they are.
No, and most never do.
Yeah.
Right? unfortunately. But especially men in their early 20s, you know, we send them to war, right? They're cannon fodder to our society. Their utility.
Expendable.
Totally expendable. And they feel it. They know it. They're broke. They don't have any connections. They don't have good prospects. You know, like that's a hard place to be in. And if you're a guy in your 20s and you get into a relationship that becomes a long-term relationship and a marriage, that's a hard boat to steer because you are in a weak position. And chances are your woman is in a very strong position because there's nothing more valuable in society than beautiful young women. And they know it. The world will roll out that red carpet for them. And so that power dynamic is really difficult to navigate when you are a 20-something-year-old kid with no victories under your belt, with no self-respect, you know, with no evidence of your competency and your capabilities. And so, you know, for guys who do get married when they're young and then they do become a man of substance later on, a lot of times their women want to continue to trade their man's stock at the value they purchased it at when they were 23. And that's when you start to run into some serious problems in a marriage where you're like, hey, you know, when we started this relationship, I wasn't a man of substance. I wasn't a man of means. And now I am, you know, so the relationship has changed. You know, I have self-dignity. I have self-respect. And at the time that we set these precedences in our relationship was a time where I didn't know who I was, but now I do. And so now we got to reorient ourselves based on the fact that I became a man while we were together. I was a boy, you know.
I think this is one of the huge problems is that they become a man. Maybe they never do, right? They never arrive at that. They just stay neutered for the rest of their existence, live in quiet desperation or whatever, and they live in a dead-end marriage where they receive no respect or they're ravaged by divorce. Societies used to have this baked-in, you know, process. Almost every society that has lasted, that's been healthy, has had a process for leveling boys up into men. And it usually started a lot earlier. So you have like the Spartans or whatever, take the kid away from the mother's home at 13, take him out in the wilderness with the hunting party, put him through some sort of ritual that was going to level him up. And when he came back, he never lived with his mother again. So when he did get into a relationship, he already knew what he was. He already knew that he was a man, and so he had much healthier relationships. We don't have that. I think sports and maybe military service are like kind of the last things we have in our society for leveling boys up into men from a societal level, outside of the father and outside the home. One of the things that I think is really important for individual guys to take on is to use their years between 20 and 30 to level up, to find out who they are. So don't get into a serious relationship.
Yeah, no.
Don't do it. Spend that time improving yourself. Again, your most important relationship is with yourself. So take that time, those 10 years, to acquire experience, to acquire levels of success, to discover your own identity, like who you are as a man. And now when you get into your 30s, you are at the top of the food chain for women. Younger women are going to desire you because you are a man of substance. You have character. You have boundaries. You know who you are. And now you have a much wider array of options with women, because not only do you have younger women that are looking to older guys, this whole, you know, hypergamy. Am I saying that right? Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. Hypergamy, right? The whole idea of hypergamy, that women are marrying for status, they're marrying up. So they're seeing a man of status, and now you're much more attractive, regardless of what your exterior looks like. I mean, obviously, the better you're in shape, the more that is an indication of who you are in your status, and women are looking for status. But being a man of means and a man of character is going to attract far more women than when you're at the bottom of the food chain and you're kind of fighting for elbow room at the table with all these other chumps. And then you got older guys that are above you and further along the path. And so you kind of take what you can get, which is not a great place to be. Marriage, a long-term relationship, should be like hiring for a position, right?
Absolutely.
Like you want to have as many applications as possible. And then you pick the best applications and you know, narrow that down, and then you find the best person for yourself to have a healthy start to a relationship. Now you know who you are as a man. You've been able to pick selectively who you want to be your partner, and you have a way better chance at making a relationship like that work than this whole a boy leaving his mom and now he's just looking for another mom to come wipe his nose, tell him everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, tuck him in at night.
Pat him on the head and say he was a good boy.
Mm-hmm. And, along with that, I honestly think young men shouldn't date anyone seriously until they have their own place. Not with like all these roommates who are just, I mean, even if it's in the same house, or whatever, you should have a living room that's yours, right?
Yeah.
You should have a car that is yours, in most situations. And you should have a way that you're providing for yourself in excess of what you need to survive. And you should be seeing, lots of other women. You should be very open about the fact that you're dating and you're seeing these other people, because that really sets the tone. That you're handing out roses here, right? This is The Bachelor, and you're on the show, right? Because once you've chosen a girl you want to be with, they're going to start that relationship knowing that you had plenty of options at the time. And that'll always be a seed in their head, right? And you should maintain the fact that that's going to be a seed in their head. And the way that you maintain that is by enforcing your healthy boundaries with them, right? When you say, no, I'm not going to do that. If that's the path you want to go, well, then let's get your stuff and send you back to your mom's house.
Dude, one of the most unattractive things about a man is when he can't